Welcome to the Finding Purpose LiveCast, where we feature authors, leaders, and speakers of purpose on a live platform to have truly authentic conversations. And now your host, Davin Salvagno.
Welcome back to the Finding Purpose LiveCast. We are here once again with my friend, Ken Blanchard. Ken, it's so great to see you. I'm grateful for you coming back a second time on the LiveCast here today. And I know that we're going to spend some time today talking about real leadership and what leadership needs to look like right now in a time that is truly like on any other that you or I or anyone alive right now has probably ever been through. And I know that you just got back from a refreshing trip in New York, and that's a time that you usually spend writing and thinking and processing through things. So welcome back. Thanks for being here today. And I'm excited to hear kind of where your mindset is today.
Well, it's great to be with you, Davin. And yes, we spend our summers in upstate New York on Skinny Atlas Lake, which is one of the Finger Lakes. And it's right in between Syracuse and Cornell, where Margie and my wife and I met. And their family bought 300 feet of lake frontage for $300 in 1947.
Wow, what a deal.
$1,000 a foot now. And so we just got back here to California, and not only do we have the COVID issue, but what we have here is the issues around the fire. And Evan, I don't know if you knew, in 2007, Marge and I were in Florida at a conference and all, and the fire swept here, and we lost our house and everything we had in it for 15 years. And when we got back into town and walked down the driveway, it looked like it had cremated the house, including our 2 cars and all. And so what we needed to do was to kind of rise above that, because one of the blessings was that nobody got hurt with it. We just lost things. And one of the fun things we had is we had a memorial celebration for our house. About 100 people showed up to tell stories about their times in our house and the parties and the things that we did and all. And so it was really kind of a celebration of kind of losing a friend. But we thought we needed to model for our people about what is really important. And what's really important is people, your family, your friends, your colleagues. That's what's really important in life. And I tell you, Davin, in terms of leadership in these tough times, the great leaders to me are the ones who are mainly concerned about their people. They're not concerned about themselves. I mean, that's the kind of ultimate in servant leadership. It's not about you, it's about the people you serve, and how can you move forward in a way that takes into consideration all the needs. It doesn't mean that you don't have to make some tough decisions. My son Scott just took over the presidency of our company in January, and he said, "Thanks a lot." I mean, I take over presidency now, but he's done a marvelous job and pulled together a great team. And every week he sends out a lengthy newsletter that explains around his values, which he told them. He started off the first session teaching everybody his leadership point of view and his values. Number one value is being forthright. And I think that's a really wonderful value for leaders. He said, "I'm going to tell you what I know and what I don't know. I'm not going to kind of cover things up. I want you to be just as familiar with what I know as I know." And the second thing, his value, is mastery. And he said, within this craziness, how do we still be the best that we can possibly be? How do we continue to grow? And then finally, his third value is kindness, and how can he do this? And so we've, had 320 people. We're going to probably have to move down eventually here to probably 220 people. And so a lot of people have been furloughed. A number of people have taken early retirement, and we're trying to figure out what can we do to help people, both that are staying and leaving in this hard time, because it's really all about them. It's not about us. We want to keep the company going because it's making a difference out there. And now more than ever, I think people need effective leadership training and know how to manage change. And that's what we're really all about. But we're also all about our people.
I think that is so important. I mean, greatest asset of an organization. And a couple of weeks ago, I was processing that, and I realized when you really think about people, because you think about asset, your house, for example, right? The house was an asset, and it's great that you had a memorial service for it, and there's memories there and all that. But what mattered was no one was hurt. People matter more than our assets. And what I realized is people really aren't the assets of our organization. People are really the greatest partners of our purpose. That's really what they are. Our organizations, Patrick Lencioni says that all organizations exist to make the lives of people better, to contribute to humanity in some way. Our people are just partners in helping us do that. And so when we go through times like this, the greatest thing that we have to ask is, how are we stewarding the people that we were given to advance our purpose? And to your point, right now there's a lot of assets that are that we're losing from a business standpoint across every industry. But the greatest thing right now is there's a lot of people who are lost, who had a sense of purpose in the work that they were doing. And now we have to make some tough decisions. And you got to lead people through that. You got to lead people through the struggle of saying, hey, listen, we still need to deliver on our purpose, but we need to figure out how we can help you continue to deliver on your purpose, because we care about you, even if that means that we can't do this anymore together as an organization.
Yes, and I think with the fires and some of this crazy stuff, we need to pray for people who have lost people. There's nothing tougher than, I was talking to a guy yesterday who lost his son, and to lose a child, is just really, really tough. And so we need to reach out to people that are hurting too. But, the key in servant leadership, which I think is really the whole way I think we need to lead. And we've seen enough negative impact. I think I've talked a number of times about self-serving leaders around the world, including our own country. I think Washington is a self-serving system. That's why so many people are just so perplexed about this whole election, because they just don't know what to do, because they don't see a visionary leadership there. And I think we really need that. But the servant leadership, the first is about what is the vision? Where are you headed? And so in tough times like this, the first thing a leader has to do is define reality. Right. I would say, here's what's happening, and here's what I have to tell you, and all. And then based on that reality, here's what our vision is, what we hope to try to be able to do. We want to be able to survive. We have to adapt. We've done an amazing job of taking our face-to-face training and putting it online, now. And it's just amazing what the people have done to do that. But, you have to, be really clear with them. First of what's the reality, what's the vision, and the vision and direction and values and goals. That's the leadership part of servant leadership. And it's your job as a leader of an organization to make sure that's clear. And that doesn't mean that you do that all by yourself. The more you involve key people around you to help you in that visioning process, the better it really is. But once you have a sense of where we want to go, now you turn that pyramid upside down, and now you basically work for your people. How do you help them? How do you help the people that are surviving during this time in your organization? How do you help the people who are going to have to look for careers elsewhere? It's about people. It's about people, and that's the caring thing that I think is just so important about great organizations. They care about their people first. That their number one customer is their people, and if you take care of your people, then they're going to go out of the way to take care of your customers, the people that use your products and services, and they're going to become raving fans of yours, and then they'll go out of the way to help your bottom line. And one of the things that our salespeople and our people in the company are reaching out to our clients so that we can be their partners. How do we help them, and how do they help us? It's not, what can you do for us? It's what can we do to help you in a way. And in the process, if we can find a way to help you, that's going to help us, because it's all about winning together. It's one of our big sayings is, no one of us is as smart as all of us, 1+1 is a lot greater than 2.
That's exactly right. And I mean, one of the greatest things that we've often shared is that, you know, what this question to ask ourselves as leaders is, who are we helping others become? That's the greatest question that we could possibly ask. When you think about that, applies whether that's, me as a father, and who am I helping my children become, whether that's me as a husband, who am I helping my wife or my spouse become, whether that's me as a leader in my organization, who are we helping our people become, our clients, like you said, our customers, who are we helping them become? How can we help? I mean, that's the greatest servant leader question of all time, is how can we help? And not from a position of quid pro quo. If I help, this is what I'm going to get from it, or this is how. No, truly having a heart for others and wanting to do all that we can, utilize the gifts, the resources, the things that we've been given, recognizing that none of those are ours to begin with, and using those to meet the needs of those around us. And I think during times like this, we hear great things like take care of your people and they'll take care of your customer, and sales and profits will follow, all of those things. We've talked about that for years, but it's times in adversity like this where we truly find out what we are made of as leaders. Are we willing to set ourselves, our agendas, our plans, everything that we had hoped that we would achieve? Are we willing to set all of that aside to meet the needs of those around us where they are with what we have? And how are we helping and meeting them in that moment? I mean, we started this segment right here. You're talking about there's a lot of people we need to be praying for right now. There are people that have lost children. There are people who've lost family members. There's people they've lost everything, whether it's due to COVID, whether it's due to the fires, whether it's due to whatever the case may be. And we could be so short-sighted in what it is that we want to accomplish and what our plans are and what our agendas are, that we're being called to a specific time right now to meet the need of someone that might be right in front of us. And if we're too busy focused on what we want to accomplish and not looking at the people that are around us and how we're being called to serve them, to turn that pyramid upside down, like you just said, and just set self aside and say, how can I help with what I have, with where I'm at right now? We can't be everything to everybody, but we could be all of us to the person right in front of us right now.
People haven't asked me, well, how can you really do? Because I so agree with what you're saying. And to me, one of the things I want to suggest to people is, how do you enter your day? And then how do you close your day? And I remember when I worked with Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote The Power of Positive Thinking. We wrote a book on the power of ethical management. But he shared with me that we all have two selves. We have an external task-oriented self that's used to getting jobs done. Then we have a thoughtful, reflective self. And which one tends to wake up quicker in the morning? It's that external task-oriented self. The alarm goes off, and John Ortberg's a buddy of mine, says, why don't we call it the opportunity clock, or it's going to be a great day. No, the alarm, and you jump into your task-oriented self, and you're trying to eat while you're washing, and you jump in your car, and you're running here, there, and all. You get home at night, and you're exhausted from all the meetings, and you lie in bed, you don't have energy to say goodnight to somebody who's lying next to you, and boom, you charge out of there again. And you're into a rat race. And so the big question that I say is, how do you enter your day slowly? And one way is to really kind of say, who am I? And like my mission statement, Davin, is to be a loving teacher and example of simple truths that helps myself and others to awaken to the presence of God in our lives. So we realize that we're here to serve, not to be served. And it doesn't do me any good to just put that on a wall or in a book or somewhere. I need to every day remind myself that's who I want to be today. As I look at the day and look at the schedule that I have or what plans I have, and set out the day to really kind of make a difference out there for other people. And then a friend of mine said, Blanchard, you've goofed up my life for a long time, but you're still doing it now, because I realized how I should end my day. He said, I wasn't a journal writer, because people write journals in 3 colors and poetry and all. But now he said, I have a journal, and I started doing this really powerful. I don't mind him. even mentioned in the last show, is that you write your date and then you say praisings. What did I do today that's consistent with who I wanted to be today, consistent with my image of myself and all, and then redirections. What would I like to redo? That's not consistent with who I want to do. And one of the things I found there is if I track my praisings and redirections, it really gives me a sense of what things I need to continue to work on, maybe even look for a mentor and all. And so I just love that quote, and I forget who said it, but an unexamined life is not worth living. And I celebrated the 60th anniversary of my 21st birthday, and I'm still excited about life and, what I might be able to do to contribute and all that kind of thing. So I want to make sure I enter my day slowly, and then I end it in a reflective way.
Oh, I love that, Ken. And it's so true about you. I remember you saying that at the Blanchard conference last February, March, about how you're just as excited to get up and make a difference in people's lives today as you were 60 years ago. And we talk a lot about leadership, but what you just talked about there is really self-leadership. When we think about leadership, it's often about, our impact on others or how we're helping other people. But it starts with leading ourselves. It starts with how we're helping ourselves, because we can't pour into others if we're empty, right? We can't fill it. We can't give to others what we don't have. And so it starts with getting up and understanding what matters most right now today. What is it that I'm equipped with? What is it what are my gifts, talents, abilities? And whether it's spending time in prayer, whether it's spending time in the Word and Scripture, meditating, whatever it is it's doing, but really understanding what is it that I have to give to others today, and not what do I want to accomplish for myself today, not necessarily what are my goals today. And goal setting is important. Obviously achieving things is important. I don't want to take away from that, but there needs to be a start of, how do I want to make an impact today? And how am I equipped to make an impact today? And then walking into every moment of every situation, whether it's every meeting you have on your calendar, whether it's walking into Starbucks and getting that coffee and how you treat the barista that's right in front of you, whether it's, how you walk into the door at the end of the day and spend time, welcoming your kids or your spouse or whatever the case is. And then at the end of the day, reflecting back and asking yourself, where did I make an impact today? Did I give every piece of myself that I possibly could have? And were there missed opportunities? And if there were, what could have I done differently? And then focusing on how you could correct those the next day.
Yeah. Well, I think you're getting at it, Davin. You and I agree that effective leadership is basically an inside-out job. It starts in your heart. And the question in your heart is, am I here to serve or be served? And that's a really powerful question, and once you sort of say, I want to really be here to serve and to help and all, then the habits I talked about is the second aspect of leadership, which is, how do you end your day? How do you close your day? And all that kind of thing. And one of the things that's really helped me over the years, Davin, is to realize that the greatest leadership role model of all time was probably Jesus. And I love, as he told his disciples, even I have come to serve, not to be served. And a lot of times people, when they hear about servant leadership, they think it's about the inmates running the prison or trying to please everybody. No, because there is vision and direction and goals and all. But it's really interesting is that Jesus, once he was clear with his people about what the goal was, and he wanted them to go and make disciples of all nations and baptize them and all. And then, once they understood that, his job then was to prepare them for his leaving. And he did it by washing their feet. And, it's really interesting. People say, well, aren't I going to lose my position if I become a servant leader? Well, after Jesus washed the feet of the disciples, what's the first thing he said? He said, you call me teacher, you call me Lord, rightly so. But just as I have done for you, do for others. And this isn't about trying to convert people, but to me, the effective leadership is not what happens when you're there, it's what happens when you're not there. And here's a guy who was a leader thousands of years later, and we're still talking about him today. And I think that's really because in his heart, he was here to serve. He had wonderful habits of entering his day slowly, and prayer and solitude and all those kinds of things. And then you move to the head, which is what are your beliefs about leadership? And that's when you get to the two parts, the leadership part and the servant part, and you put those together and say, hey, how do I do it? I'm here to make a difference. Wow. It's pretty powerful stuff.
So powerful, so powerful. And the thing is, a lot of time you think of leadership and you think boldness, right? You think challenging others, and Jesus was bold and Jesus challenged others, but Jesus was also truth and love, right? And you've also always said, love is the answer. What is the question? And so whether it was spoken or through action, Jesus also led through love. And so he had no problem boldly challenging people and flipping over tables and telling them, the truth. But at the same time, he had no problem also stopping down and washing their feet. And I think what happens is that when you lead from both, when you lead from a position of boldness and from challenging others, but then you're also willing to lead from a position of being on your knees and washing others' feet and serving, they complement each other because then you value both. I think of some of the greatest leaders that I've ever had in my careers, in my workplace, and those were people who deeply challenged me, but they were also people that when I needed support the most or I needed help the most, they were willing to set themselves aside. They were willing to go out of their way to do whatever it is was possible to support, to serve, right? To lead from that position of on the need of washing feet. And then in their absence, I miss them even more, right? So, someone said that if people don't remember your presence, then it truly never mattered. I don't know if I fully agree with that quote, but I think to your point, when Jesus left, there was such a transformation of who his disciples became because of the example that they saw while they were with him, but in how he led them, both boldly, but then also from a position of servant.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. One of our old colleagues, Rick Tate, always said, feedback is the breakfast of champions, and that one of your key roles as a leader is once the vision is set, you got to get out of your office and you need to wander around and catch people doing things right, and praise them and say you're heading in the right direction. But if they're not, you need to redirect their efforts. You don't want people to continue to go off. And it's wonderful watching Jesus interact with Peter. It's a perfect example because at one point he would just really praise him, and then Peter do something stupid. He said, "You get behind me, Satan," and he had to really work with him. But I think that's the way you really develop people. They know that you're there honestly for them. You care for them. You're going to praise them when they're doing things well. You're going to redirect them and see if you can help them if they're getting off of things, because that's what life is all about, is being there for people and using feedback.
Yeah. And it's, I think a lot of times we get in our own way because we're so busy comparing ourselves to others. We're so busy comparing ourselves to other leaders and, trying to, that's just like you said, it's the nature of the country, the nature of Washington, the nature of human nature. Even the disciples back then were vying for, who was going to be first, who was going to be, at Jesus' side, all those things. Everyone wants to be a Peter, but nobody wants to be an Andrew. And what's really cool about that is everyone wants to be Peter because everyone recognizes, Peter reached the masses, all of those things. But the reality is Andrew introduced Peter to Jesus. And so had Andrew not done that, Peter would not have been able to have the impact that he had. And sometimes we need to recognize that sometimes we just need to be an Andrew in the moment. We don't need to be everything to all people. We just need to be all of ourselves to those that are right in front of us. And sometimes from a feedback and recognition standpoint, it's calling out the specific impact they meet. It's going to those people. It's going to the Andrews that want to be Peters and saying, listen, I know right now that you want to be a Peter. You want to have this massive impact. You want to do these great things. You want to be in this position. You want to do all of this. But do you realize that you did this one thing? You did this one little thing right here. And because you did this one thing, it made this massive impact. And that couldn't have happened if you didn't do that. Feedback and recognition is so important because I think we often lose sight of the impact that we have and the impact that we can recognize in others because we're so focused on what everybody else is doing around us.
Yeah. And one of the things I think people need to remember in these tough times too is you need different strokes for different folks and also different strokes for the same folks on different parts of their job. And SL2, which is our situational approach to effective leadership, really says is you need to give the amount of direction and support to people where they are. And so if somebody's beginning or is this in the first time they've had to deal with this aspect of change, you need to be there to giving them the kind of direction that they need, and they gradually move from directing to coaching to supporting to delegating. The most ineffective style in tough times is to announce something to people and then move to a delegating leadership style and don't say anything until they screw up. And then you fly in, we call it seagull management, fly in, make a lot of noise, dump on everybody, and then fly out. And all that's not very helpful. You need to be there for them, giving them the amount of direction and support they need. And it will vary depending on which task. Sometimes somebody knows more about a particular goal that they have than you do, and you need to get out of their way. Other times they might be an enthusiastic beginner and you need to work with them very closely. So, Jesus really did that. His first commission to the disciples, he told them where to stay, what to do, how to do it, and all. They do this, dust off your feet and all. You see him gradually turn from directing to coaching to supporting. In the end of Matthew, he delegates. He says, go and make disciples and baptize them in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And that's all the direction he gave them, except he said, but I will be with you until the end of time, and so that as a great leader is always there for you, even if they're not there in person.
That's so good. And I think that's the SL2 model has been such a guide for me personally in my life over the last 20 years. I can't tell you how many times that I've revisited the SL2. And honestly, I feel like it was developed way before its time. I think that model is needed today more than any other time in history. And that's the first time I've heard it applied to Jesus' ministry like that. I mean, that's so true. But when you think about that model, and we don't have it on the screen here, but for those who are familiar with it, the one piece of that model that always speaks so much to me is the actual path that moves through the different leadership styles, right? So, there's this path that starts in S1 and then it goes up into S2 and then it kind of peaks and then starts to come down in S3 and then kind of finishes out in S4 like a perfect bell curve. And to me, that path has always represented to me as a leader the amount of time and effort that I need to put into being with the person that I'm leading. It represents engagement to me. So you think about engagement. To engage means to enter someone's world. You think about what Jesus did, right? He entered our world, right? To show us, to coach us and then support us and then ultimately to delegate. And a lot of times what we want to do as leaders is we want to move from S1 to S4 as quickly as we possibly can. And we don't want to roll up our sleeves and put in the time and effort to go up into S2 and S3, because that's going to require time. It's going to require patience. It's going to require resilience. It's going to require all of these things that we tell ourselves we don't have and that we don't want to give, but are absolutely necessary for getting people from D1 to D4. And it's when we make the conscious decisions because we're focused on ourselves and our agendas rather than focusing on others to skip going up into S2 and S3 because we just want to get people to D4, that comes back to bite us and we don't end up leading the way that we were designed to lead.
Yeah. And one of the things, Devin, we've started to do is that we think that effective leadership is a transformational journey. And as we said, it starts with self. And so we have a self-leadership program where you analyze, your goals and look at your own development level and determine what leadership style you need. And if you're not getting it, go and ask for it, And people say, I don't want to ask because they might refuse. No, if somebody says they're not going to help you, they don't turn you down, they just turn your idea down and all. And, but you need to be able to know what you need. And we've now excitingly developed a student self-leadership for young people that people we're training can then train their kids in, because nowadays kids, need to stop blaming people and feel frustrated. They need to say, okay, what do I need from my parents? What do I need from teachers? What do I, and how do you ask for it? And the only, Eleanor Roosevelt said, the only body can make you feel inferior is, nobody can make you inferior without your permission, And so, if somebody turns you down, well, that's interesting, go find somebody else. But don't sit there immobilized. You need to be, and I think that's what resiliency is really all about too, Darren, is really realizing how you have to bob and weave and all that kind of thing. I find, as I've talked to people in these tough times, the best leaders I know all play competitive athletics, because in athletics, you don't win all the time. And you get hit, and you got to get up off the ground, and you got to bob and weave. But if you all just studied and all that kind of stuff and didn't have a lot of failure experiences, all of a sudden you get hit, and you just don't have the resiliency to do that, And one of the things that I feel my son has, and I have, and people have, is, boy, we've had to bob and weave over. We haven't always won, so it's an interesting time.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I know your bride's from Philly. I know many people know that I'm from Philly, and one of my favorite philosophers of all time is Rocky Balboa. And I love how he says, life isn't about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, how much you can take and keep moving forward. And I can't tell you, there has been so many times that I have been down, many times where I've just, I just said, I can't keep doing this. I can't possibly make a difference. There's others who have a louder voice than me. There's plenty of speakers and authors and all of this stuff, and all this negative thought gets into your head. And it's at times like this where you're down and you just want to give up, right? You want to throw in the towel as an athlete. You don't want to take the field again. You just want to be done. That you need leaders to step in and say, get up. You need the Mickeys of your life, going back to the Rocky, right? That encourage you from the corner to tell you to get up. And a lot of times you need to go back to kind of that SL2 model and talk about what's the leadership that I need right now. I consider, there's times where people can tell me what to do and delegate to me, and I'll just go do it. But there's other times where, I need a lot of direction right now, or I need a lot of support right now, or I need a lot of coaching right now, or I need encouragement right now. And I think, we talk about resilience, we talk about leadership, we talk about the season of time that we're in right now. There's a lot of leaders right now, quite frankly, that they have their head in the sand, and they're just waiting for the pandemic to push over. They're waiting for the election to push over. They're waiting for the social turmoil to push over. They're waiting for all of this stuff. And there's a lot of people who are down right now. And I think more than ever, we need the things that you're talking about, the concepts of servant leadership, the concepts of SL2, the concepts of resiliency, to rise up within those who have the ability to meet people where they're at and help them to press forward through these times.
Yeah. And you need support not only from people you work with, but you need support at home. We all need Adrians in our lives, Yo, Adrian. But we need support for each other, because it's a tough time in everybody's life. Our kids need our support. This whole thing of trying to go to school online and everything, it's It's really a lot of, at least at home you can do it. You need to hug each other. and But that's the thing I really miss with this pandemic is no hugs. This elbow thing is really, gets to you after a while. But but I think the important thing is to be there for each other, whether it's at home, in the office, or the neighborhood, and all. How can you be there for people?
Yeah. And we often lose sight of that. It's quickly how quickly we lose sight of that. September 11th was just this past weekend, and on that was we probably saw the worst of humanity on September 11th, 19 years ago, and on September 12th, I feel like we saw the best in humanity. We saw people being there for each other. We saw people loving each other, and right now we need a lot of that. Right now, the things that unite us are so much stronger than the things that divide us. And we need to find ways to be in people's corner, to be in each other's corner, and not find ways to be on the opposite side of the ring, right? We need to determine who do we need to be the Mickey for? Who do we need to be the Adrian for? Who do we need to be? Who are those around us that right now we need to step into, we need to engage their world, and we need to help them where they're at. And that's really what servant leadership is, right? It's being willing to step away from wherever you think that you might be and meet people where they're at. And there's a lot of people right now that need leaders to be. Who was it that said, I hope that we will speak, that all leadership will be servant leadership one day, that we will speak about leadership as if we never thought about it a different way other than servant leadership.
Yeah. Well, I know John Maxwell and I believe that. And so John might have done that. But, Robert Greenleaf was the modern day servant leader advocate that we had. And of course, Jesus is the all-time servant leader. So it's just, we just need to do that. And we need to pray that somehow out of this election, a servant leader might arise, because there's always ways that people can change and be different and all. And so I think that we need to do that. So it's life is a very special occasion, Darren, and we don't want to miss it, but it's also an interesting, exciting journey for sure.
It is. We a lot of times it feels like we're rushing towards a destination, right? We're always chasing that next thing. In college, you're chasing the degree, and then when you get your job, you're chasing that first promotion, and then once you're in your career a little while, you're chasing whatever that lifestyle is, or you're chasing retirement eventually, or whatever it might be. But you just said life is a journey, and we're only here for but a whiff in time, and the greatest measure of purpose while we're here is truly who we help others become along the way. I mean, we started this podcast earlier and you shared that you lost everything in 2007. I'm sure that as you guys were walking back to your house and saw the house cremated and the cars cremated and everything that 15 years of your life literally just wiped away, the only thing that mattered to you in that moment was that you had each other, you had your loved ones. And again, at the end of the day, everything that we attain for ourselves, titles, status, positions, books, accolades, all of that's not going to matter. What's going to matter is, did we love well while we were here? And who did we help others become while we were here? And one of the things that I've greatly appreciated about you, Ken, over the years is that you have always approached each one of your works. And when I say works, I'm not just talking about your books. I'm talking about times I've heard you speak. I'm talking about times, the few times that we've been in person where I've actually seen you face to face. You've always interact with people, whether it's through a book, through a talk, or through people from a position of how is what I'm about to say or what I'm about to do going to help you? How's it going to impact you? And I think if we all approached life that way, if we all approached this journey every day with how is it that whatever it is I'm about to do or whatever it is I'm about to say going to impact those around me, then we will have lived a full life.
Mhm. I agree. Amen.
Yeah. So as we wrap up here in the last few minutes here, again, I know that um, there's a lot going on right now. There's the political climate, there's the COVID climate, there's the social climate, there's all these things, and you've often said, love is the answer. What is the question? And we can hear that message over and over and become desensitized to it. But I want to give you a minute here. And, let's say hypothetically, this was, we were all going home to be with the Lord tomorrow. And this was the last message that, any of us were going to share. What is it that you would have to say to a world that desperately needs to hear one message right now? If you could share one piece of wisdom with the world, what would you share?
Well, it's interesting. A while back, I met a fellow from New Zealand at an airport, and I sent him a couple of books. And he wrote me a note and said, Ken, the business you're in, and I think we ought to all be in, is you're in the business of the love of the power of love rather than the love of power.
Ooh.
And what I'd love to leave with you is just to remember that the power you have is to love others, and it's not about gaining power for yourself. So it's falling in love with love and not with power.
Falling in love with love and not with power. Oh, so good. We know that word says to whom much is given, much is required. And, Ken, you've given a lot, and you've been given a lot in return, and you've made a tremendous impact through your work and through your life, not only on my life, but on countless lives for all those who know you. And I think the one thing that I will always remember about leadership is that leadership is love. Leadership is love. It's understanding that what we have been given, we are required to use in the service and the love of others. And that the more that we attain, if we're given more power, if we're, blessed to be able to write a best-selling book or, give an all-time TED Talk or become the CEO of a Fortune 10 company, all of that is just so that we can love at a greater level. And so I just appreciate that last message, and I appreciate for you not just saying that, but living that out for the last 81 years.
Well, good to be with you, and keep up the good work. I'm so glad that youngsters like you are coming along to keep the message going.
Well, thank you, Ken. I appreciate that, and I truly consider an honor and privilege to carry that flag and to carry that battalion forward for the next generation and the generations that will come after that. And I hope others will continue to spread that message, because it's the greatest message that needs to be heard more now than ever. Thank you so much for taking time today. I truly appreciate you. Give our love to your bride, to your family, to the entire Blanchard organization. We are praying for you through this entire time. I know that we are all going to get through this together. And I know that your team and your family is going to continue to make an impact in generations to come because of everything that you just shared and because of everything that you've lived out so well.
God bless.
God bless you, Ken. Thank you for tuning in today to the Finding Purpose LiveCast with Ken Blanchard, all-time #1 best-selling author, a tremendous speaker, influence, thought leader, and truly a spiritual leader of our time, and someone who I'm honored and pleased to call a friend. We hope that you will listen to this over and over again, and that you will listen to more episodes of the Finding Purpose LiveCast as we continue to bring speakers, authors, and leaders who demonstrate what servant leadership looks like and share messages of truth, love, and purpose during this time. Till next time, live purposefully.